know that he'd have to explain how it is that electronic voting machines, after all of this time, can in fact be hacked and in a matter of seconds with nothing more than a ballpoint pen. We'll have the latest for you on the federal trial that the corporate national media is refusing to cover. Tonight, our coverage from the Federal District Court in Atlanta. Amber Connor reporting. And Roger Stone, 5 years ago, he and his wife were awakened at 6 o'clock in the morning at their home by the FBI, banging on their front door, 29 FBI agents in tactical gear and weapons at the ready to arrest him because he supported President Trump and they represented the Marxist Dem deep state. And they brazenly, even with a Republican Trump-appointed attorney general, they went to intimidate one of the president's closest advisors. Roger Stone is our guest here tonight, and we remind everyone the federal government is indeed weaponized against American citizens, as is the powerful tool of the Marxist Dems, the deep state, and this puppet president's regime. And yes, that is one of the principal issues at contest in this year's presidential election. And Congressman Tim Burchett joins us here tonight. He's here to take up the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson's checkered and uncertain first few months in the job. America First MAGA supporters are split on whether Johnson has a future as their Speaker. And yes, we'll take up the Congressman's complaints that many of the Republicans in Congress are simply compromised, being blackmailed and coerced for their votes. We take that up with a great American and Congressman from Tennessee, Tim Burchett, here tonight. But first, President Trump today weighing in on the Texas border showdown between the Biden administration, the Supreme Court, and the state of Texas. In a post on Truth Social, President Trump called on all governors to deploy their National Guard and give Texas, quote, full support to repel the invasion. President Trump added that, quote, all Americans should support the common sense measures by Texas authorities to protect the safety, security, and sovereignty of Texas and of the American people. President Trump also pledging to secure the border when he's reelected. He says, I will work hand in hand with Governor Abbott and other border states to stop the invasion, seal the border, and rapidly begin the largest domestic deportation operation in history. As we reported to you yesterday, President Trump is also helping to kill the disastrous Schumer-McConnell open borders deal that is in the Senate now, being championed by Rhino Senator James Lankford. The open borders deal in the Senate it has an uncertain path. President Trump correctly calling the deal, which would continue to allow what amounts to millions of illegal immigrants running into this country, a gift to the radical left Democrats. President Trump's leadership on the border issue has enraged the Washington establishment, of course. And here is Mitt Romney reacting to President Trump.
This is why he's doing I think the border is a very important issue for Donald Trump, and the fact that he would communicate to Republican senators and Congresspeople that he doesn't want us to solve the border problem because he wants to blame Biden for it is really appalling. But the reality is that we have a crisis at the border. The American people are suffering as a result of what's happening at the border. And someone running for president ought to try and get the problem solved, as opposed to saying, hey, save that problem. Don't solve it. Let me take credit for solving it later.
And now with us, retired Chief of the U.S. Border Patrol, Distinguished Texas Public Policy Foundation Senior Fellow, Rodney Scott. Rodney, thanks for being with us. You've got a ringside seat at what looks to be a great amount of history being made. That is a confrontation between the state of Texas and the Supreme Court and the Biden regime over who can exert authority over that border. What is your thinking? How surprised are you that we're looking at this showdown between a state and the federal government, whether you're talking about the White House or the Supreme Court?
Well, thanks for having me on, Lou. I am surprised to a certain extent. Based on my 30-year career, I never thought something like this would happen. But unfortunately, I'm not quite as surprised after spending 7 months in the Biden administration, sitting in the meetings, listening to how they think. I understand the principles that are being discussed here, the laws that they're saying the Border Patrol has a right to patrol the border, and they should. But you can't miss this. This is the first time in the history of our country that they've actually turned the federal government and trying to use those laws to keep the border open, while a state or another entity is actually trying to secure the border. That's the flip. And a lot of people are reading into this latest decision a little too much. All the Supreme Court judge did, or all the Supreme Court did, was vacate the injunction. So they have not ruled on the merits. Mm-hmm. This really is a constitutional challenge. The state has a right under the Constitution to protect itself from invasion, and that really that supersedes any other law.
Yes, and I think it's straightforward. And just knowing that these justices, who don't do that many cases, should understand the power of the Section 4, the invasion clause, and also the 10th Amendment, that is the states' rights and their responsibilities to defend their citizens. This is even a process issue. You talked about the injunction. This is, and a number of people trying to defend the court have been using that, Rodney, as you know. There's no defense for this court. This court aligned itself with the Biden administration, aligned themselves with the Mexican drug cartels, and showed absolute rank indifference to a crisis, an emergency on the border of this country, a 2,000-mile long border that you were responsible for policing for years. I mean, how does that make you feel?
Angry, to be quite honest, but my anger, again, is aimed at the Biden administration and Secretary Mayorkas. They know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. These decisions were intentional. They campaigned on them. And this is a significant threat to the United States. I never thought I would see the day where we very intentionally unsecured our border. And these threats are real. Yeah. It's not just the migrants. This is the cartels now get to pick and choose who comes into our country instead of the United States government. This is not sustainable.
It's not sustainable, but here it is. 3 years later, this administration working absolutely complicitly in partnership with the Mexican drug cartels, whether anyone wants to acknowledge that. And I'll say this point blank. Did you ever think you would see a time when it was very clear that the cartels were actually in charge of that border? Because they're behind every bit of the smuggling, sex trafficking, illegal immigration that we're witnessing.
So no, I didn't, Lou, and this is why. When I started my job as a Border Patrol agent back in 1992, the Clinton administration said enough is enough. The cartels and other people are choosing who comes to our country. We're going to stop it. So over my 30-year career, we systematically gained significant control over that border. But more importantly, we had a plan, and we were getting better and better every single day. We were deciding who and what comes into this country. We were enforcing the law. That all ended on January 21st, 2021. When I was still chief, but under the Biden administration, he rolled back all the policies that were effective and then really changed even the tone of the U.S. Border Patrol and ordered us to refocus our resources on expediting the processing of people, reducing the time in custody. And then every one of those people released, they called home and told their family and friends that they got released, and then the waves continued. And the Biden administration refused to have a single conversation about how to slow down the flow. Their entire focus was on redirecting money to actually expedite the processing. And that's why I argue adamantly, money is not the solution to this problem. It's actually changing the policy and actually enforcing the law.
Yeah. I don't know what part money and I don't know what part policy, but I do know this, that Alejandro Mayorkas, as a matter of critical observance of principle, has to be impeached. I think President Biden should be impeached for what he's done at that southern border, because this is straightforwardly a treasonous act in which you turn over the control of your border to a international narco organization like the Mexican drug cartels. And there seems to be some reticence in Washington to talk straight about this. You were there with the Biden administration. This is straightforwardly a criminal enterprise, a criminal policy. And you left, after 7 months? Uh, what did you think as you walked out the door of the Biden regime and you knew what they planned?
So I was so concerned, I penned a letter to both houses of Congress, the oversight committees for the Department of Homeland Security, and I outlined my serious concerns and predicted exactly what's going to happen today. Because the people that are pulling the strings behind the curtains in the White House, they wouldn't even let us discuss the threats. They don't care. They don't want to know. They were focused on expediting the flow of people.
And as we wrap up here, and I thank you greatly, Rodney. I hope you'll come back more as we discuss this crisis on our border. It is a constitutional crisis. It's a crisis of threatened sovereignty, in point of fact, and it's a crisis that the United States right now is shrinking from, and in fact losing. But I have to say, this is a point in time where this country is being led by people who mean the destruction of the country. And by the way, we should not gloss over the fact that there are all sorts of U.S. manufacturing plants in northern Mexico. There are all sorts of parts facilities been built by Detroit that are actually coming to the United States. They are dealing with the cartels, and no one should lie about it. No one should ever ignore it. U.S. companies in Mexico are in league with the cartels because that money and that product that they're producing down there, it comes at a price, maybe indirectly, but it's still a relationship with a Mexican drug cartel. Rodney, we thank you for being with us, and I hope you'll come back soon. We appreciate everything you've done for this country, and we will look forward to our next discussion. Rodney Scott, the chief of the U.S. Border Patrol. And meanwhile, President Trump today in court again, dealing with the E. Jean Carroll defamation lawsuit. You know, the case where there are no witnesses against him, there's no evidence against him. The only evidence issue is E. Jean Carroll destroying evidence after it was subpoenaed. It's quite a case. You really should keep up with it. We try to. Former President Trump stormed out of that courtroom in the middle of Carroll's attorney's closing arguments. The president's exit came as her attorneys were telling the jurors that former President Trump is a liar. President Trump had the opportunity to testify yesterday. He took the stand for about 4 minutes, but the judge in the case, Clinton appointee Lewis Kaplan, severely limited what President Trump was able to say. Judge Kaplan also outrageously threatened to throw President Trump's attorney, Alina Habba, in prison for showing social media posts that had not been entered into the record. Judge Kaplan warned her that, quote, she was on the verge of spending some time in the lockup. This judge is quite a boy. Let's bring in Trump spokesperson and former RNC spokesperson, Liz Harrington. Liz, great to have you with us. The president having quite a day, to say the very least. Give us your thoughts about what happened in that courtroom in New York. It's one outrage after another as these Marxist Dem judges go after the former president of the United States.
Well, that's absolutely right. This is totally lawless. I mean, this has no place in a real American courtroom. I mean, you have no opportunity to defend yourself against a false allegation. Think of this. When you defend yourself against a disgusting allegation of someone you don't even know, who you've never met aside from a photo line when you're the most famous man in the world, you've taken a lot of pictures with a lot of people. He has no idea who this person is. You say as much, and then they get to sue you for defamation when they are the one that lied. The whole thing is just a bunch of nonsense that has no basis in law or fact, and we can't allow this to stand. We need to start really exercising our constitutional rights, because they can't do this to us if we follow the Constitution. And this judge has no business being in a courtroom. He didn't allow President Trump to speak. He barely got 2 words out, and he struck it from the record. It's just despicable. And we also should have cameras in the courtroom, by the way, because if the American people, and they already are on President Trump's side, they know this is one-sided, this lawfare isn't working. But if they got to see this disgrace, this monstrosity in action, the entire country would be in uproar as well.
Well, the country ought to be in uproar because it seems that every judge in New York, whether it is the Manhattan DA's case, whether it's Attorney General Letitia James' case, whatever the case may be, in New York, the judges are ignoramuses, and they are proudly such. To me, it is absolutely mind-boggling that these judges, as extraordinarily ignorant as they are sitting on a bench pretending that this is some sort of an impartial trial and that they are somehow judiciously pure. It's a circus, and it is a Soviet-style presentation brought to you by the New York court system. It's outrageous. Where does the president go from here?
You know, it really is. He is going to continue to fight. We have to. I mean, this cannot stand. We cannot allow this lawlessness to continue. And, Lou, I think it's actually even worse than them just being ignorant. I think they're willfully doing this. I think they're willfully putting him in courts with lawfare, hiding the true rights and the true law from him, and not being able to put on a proper defense. None of this is allowed to happen if you use the Constitution. It's just plain and simple. If you use real law, they changed the statute of limitations. That's ex post facto. That's unconstitutional. You can't do that after the fact. Years, by the way, from a date she doesn't know. She has no evidence, no proof, no witnesses. That is lawlessness. And so absolutely he's going to continue
destroying
to fight
evidence is as well, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So when I say ignorance, I'm calling them ignoramuses because that is as
right.
I've got to preserve some restraint here, just because it is a family show. Liz, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it. Up next, an update on the election security case unfolding in Georgia. What has come to light during this trial has been shocking. The revelations, and remember those machines, those electronic voting machines you were told couldn't be hacked, couldn't be tampered with, couldn't be manipulated? Well, one professor with a ballpoint pen in 5 seconds said that is all bunkum, and proved it in 5 seconds by hacking the machine, the names of the candidates, and the numbers of votes. Stay with us. We'll tell you exactly why the mainstream media is trying to avoid this story with everything it's worth. This program does not shy away from it. In fact, we seek it out. Truth, that is. We'll continue in one moment with that story.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and I'm here to tell you about my new product from MyPillow, towels that actually work. Watch this absorbency test. Here's another towel that we randomly went out and bought. Here's one of my towels with the nice design. I don't know if you can see this, but you could line a swimming pool with this. I mean, this is crazy. Get rid of it. Towels that actually work. What a concept. I'm interrupting this commercial to let you know you can get our 6-piece My Towels, regular $69.98, now only $29.98. Or you can save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels, made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Also, we have bath sheets, bath towels, washcloths, hand towels, and so much more. And the best part, with your promo code, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all My Towels. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
Welcome back. Congressman Mike Johnson hasn't been Speaker for even 100 days, and he's already, it seems, lost much of the support of the Republican caucus. Time magazine is dubbing him the Sino, or Speaker in name only, I don't think much of the magazine, but that's a pretty good line. It's hard to believe that in such short time, Johnson has already proven to be a downgrade from former Speaker Kevin McCarthy. The America First case against Johnson is clear. Johnson has worked with the Democrats on legislation to keep the government open and to avoid a shutdown, and supporting all of the madness that is the Biden agenda. In doing so, he's helping fund Marxist Democrat priorities. Johnson has also helped negotiate more funding for Ukraine while doing little to push for more security at the border. Though he announced today the Senate open border bill is dead on arrival, he said. It's worth noting he only took that position after President Trump came out against the bill. We hope there's a correlation. Well, Speaker Johnson is so loved by the Democrats that they're now working to protect him from being ousted as Speaker by the MAGA, America First, Freedom Caucus members of the conference. The thinking is apparently Democrats could provide the votes Johnson needs to remain in power in the House. Republicans, though, will try to remove Johnson if he double crosses them. I think even one more time, that'll be it. According to NBC News, Democratic Congressman Jim Hines floated the idea at a White House meeting with President Biden and other congressional leaders last week. Speaker Johnson was in attendance at that meeting as well. Isn't that cozy? So why is Mike Johnson still Speaker, and how long will he last? Should he last? Well, Tim Burchett, Congressman from Tennessee, joins us now. And Congressman, great to have you with us here on Lou Dobbs Tonight. Let me begin by asking you straight up, should Mike Johnson still be Speaker?
I think he should, because I'll tell you, if we, up until this point, I've been, as you know, I've been disappointed in a lot of these issues. I think the March deadline on the budget, or the continuation, whatever you want to call it, if we do not see the border situation and in a singular bill, I think, then we will probably be looking for another speaker.
So the issue is the continuing resolution, how he handles that, and whether or not he insists on accountability for these for border security. Would you be satisfied with attaching, as the White House insists and the Marxist Dems in the House insist, Ukraine funding as well? Should there be a quid pro quo, or should it be a straight up deal?
No, sir. It should be a straight up deal. We've had the Democrats, and that's the trouble with Republicans. We are not messaging, and I hate stuff like that, but dadgummit, Lou, we've got to put the word out. You know, we put H.R. 2 out and sitting on Schumer's desk. Nobody talks about it. They keep saying the do nothing Republicans. Well, you know, we passed that, and that would, we think, resolve a lot of the problems at the border. This crazy plan that's coming out of the Senate now, you know, allowing for, I forget how many thousands of illegals to flow over our border per day. I told somebody, I said, that's like deciding the number of loops in your noose. I mean, it's still going to hang you. It just, you know, at what point does it snap your neck? And there is no compromise, Lou. We've got I've read from 140 to $400 billion a year is what it costs us to maintain these folks and that are coming over our border illegally. And no border, no budget. Reagan shut it down 8 times and he survived. I think if we put it out there to the American public, I think they are fed up. They're seeing the crime. They have relatives that have lost their lives to fentanyl. They've seen schools with 10 or so different languages being taught, and then American kids are doing without. They're seeing veterans kicked out of nursing homes, schools closed so that they can house illegals, and this continues just on down, and it cannot continue. The so-called national media is pushing this agenda that it's not affecting this country, but you know as well as I do, it is affecting this country. And I'll tell you, one of the groups to blame, we cannot let this pass, is some of these national chambers of commerce. They kill every chance we've had, because they want cheap labor on your roof and, cleaning up your motel rooms, in their sweatshops, in their businesses. They don't want to pay any insurance. They don't want any liability, and they don't get it. And that's exactly what they get with these folks. And so, we need to clamp down on them. And as you well remember, they endorsed, I believe, 12 or 14 of Speaker Pelosi's closest lieutenants for re-election, and I believe every one of those won, and that kept her in power. So I think we need to know it's people over portfolios, Lou, and we got to make that decision. We got to decide. I've already made that decision, and I'm going to draw opposition because of that and some other issues. But I honestly think it's that important.
Well, I'm delighted that you feel that way and that you're putting your energy up against that of the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, all of the established Republicans who don't blush when somebody calls them a rhino. It's one of they're absolutely lowlifes, trying to, without any question whatsoever, to subvert the Republican Party, the interest of the working man and woman in this country, our middle class. They don't care whether the American dream survives just so the military and industrial complex thrives. And good for you for taking them on. And I want to turn to another point that you've made, and you're being, it seems, reinforced by developments every day, when you said much of the Republican conference itself is compromised, and many are being blackmailed and coerced in their votes on a number of issues. Your thoughts now, as we see more and more strange votes by representatives who inexplicably are joining with the Marxist Dems, whether it be on the border, whether it be on spending. Your thoughts?
No other reason, Lou. They're throwing our country down the tubes. No other reason. And they're going to be held accountable. You've seen a bunch of Republicans decide not to run. Some of those are, I guess, what you'd call rhinos. And some are just good people that are just frustrated with the whole thing and don't want to be put through it anymore. And they're just said, like, I didn't sign up for this. Well, tell you the truth, Lou, I did sign up for this. I always tell people I was just at a group just about 30 minutes ago or an hour ago, and they said, what was your biggest surprise when you got to Washington? My biggest surprise was that I wasn't surprised. They want to call it a swamp. It's not a swamp, Lou. A swamp is something God created, and it's a pretty cool thing. It's a pretty cool little ecosystem. It filters water, it provides for life, does a lot of things. It's an open sewer. Washington, D.C. is an open sewer. It just flows in and nothing flows out. And the Uniparty runs the deal. They don't see black and white, folks. All they see is green. They're the ones, when the president flies in, it doesn't matter what party is in, they're the ones, you usually see them in or around the tarmac when the president flies into their towns. And it has nothing to do with their political affiliation. It has to do with the cash and their power, and it's disgusting. And yeah, they'll wave the American flag. They'll cheer this country on at the Olympics and all that, as long as it provides for their checkbook and their portfolio. But once it doesn't, they don't care. My daddy used to talk about how that they're, when the communists take over, it's always the powerful ones that ends up in the limos. And, I asked him as a naive young man, probably in my teens or maybe younger, I said, what are these communists, Daddy? I said, why do you say these people in Hollywood are communists? As communists, they're going to be thrown out. They'll be in line just like the rest. And he said, no, they won't be in line. They'll be the ones in charge of the line. You and I will be in line. And I said, okay, I didn't get it then, but I sure as heck get it now.
Congressman, we thank you for your honesty and your service to the country. And we thank you for standing up for this country's values in let's put it this way, less than ideal circumstances there in that open sewer that we call the nation's capital. Thanks so much, Tim Burchett. We appreciate it. Congressman representing Tennessee and America. Up next, there's a major election integrity trial underway in Georgia, but you probably don't know about it if you're not watching, this broadcast. The fact is, it involves the integrity of the state's voting machines. That's right. What does it mean for this November's elections? And what does it mean to what happened in 2017, 2016, 2020, and 2022? We'll find out. We really believe we just may find out this time. We'll have much more on that, a report from the courthouse on the latest, and a programming reminder. Please join us each and every day, that's right, 7 days a week, for our podcast, The Great America Show, available at LouDobbs.com, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, major platforms all. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0. When I invented My Pillow, it had everything you'd ever want in a pillow. Well, now there's new technology that makes it even better. My Pillow 2.0 has my patented fill combined with a cooling fabric with temperature regulating thread. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
Now's the time to go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use the promo code to save 50% on your My Pillow 2.0. Not only that, for a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
mypillow.com.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and I'm here to tell you about my new product from My Pillow. Towels that actually work. Watch this absorbency test. Here's another towel that we randomly went out and bought. Here's one of my towels with the nice design. I don't know if you can see this, but you could line a swimming pool with this. I mean, this is crazy. Get rid of it. Towels that actually work. What a concept. I'm interrupting this commercial to let you know you can get our 6-piece My Towels, regular $69.98, now only $29.98. Or you can save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels, made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Also, we have bath sheets, bath towels, washcloths, hand towels, and so much more. And the best part, with your promo code, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all My Towels. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
Well, we're back covering a trial that the national corporate media won't touch with a 10-foot pole. The case is, being tried in Atlanta, Georgia in a federal district court. The case is called Curling versus Raffensperger. It's an election machine lawsuit in Georgia. The issue is, how much vulnerability is there surrounding these machines? And just how secure are our elections? At this point, a cybersecurity expert has revealed extreme vulnerabilities of manipulation in Georgia's election system because of these machines. That same expert warned there are undetectable ways of hacking these voting machines. For example, malware installed on ballot marking devices could be invisible to countermeasures, and also forensic examination, making it almost impossible to discover evidence of manipulation of votes under the right circumstances. It would only take a big pen to manipulate these machines in a way that could alter the outcome of an election, a major election. And it took this expert, Alex Halderman, professor of computer science at the University of Michigan, about 5 to 6 seconds to demonstrate the validity of his statements. This is a story that should be everywhere in national mainstream media. But intriguingly, it is not. The media has decided that this topic is not to be discussed because their corporate masters say it's not to be discussed. So this is a travesty, the refusal of the national media to cover this story, because we're talking about a federal trial that could influence not only Georgia's election, but elections across the country as we approach Election Day, November 5th, 2024. It's part of the reason that newsrooms in the country are, by the way, being shut down, going out of business. They've lost the trust of the American people, and they're more concerned about, satisfying their masters and speaking softly to power rather than talking straight up to power. We're kind of committed to telling the truth, to tell you the truth. And thankfully, there are journalists like citizen journalist Amber Connor, who is covering this important trial and reporting here for us. Amber, first of all, thank you for the great work you're doing in bringing this story to life for this audience. Amber, we're at the end of the week. Today, the trial. What is your headline for the trial?
Oh, today was rather heated, back and forth, and the judge asked for to encourage everyone to keep the temperature down, because we're at a time of great division, and you can be a strong advocate and that she has sympathy for everyone, but to make sure to keep the temperature down during the court case, because as we see playing out right now, the state seems to be laying all responsibilities on county election managers.
The state what? I'm sorry. Could you say that again? Amber,
yeah,
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that again, please?
Yes, the Secretary of State's office seemed to be laying all the responsibilities of the anomalies and the things that were complained about by citizens on the heads of the precinct managers and on human error. So they spent the day having Blake Evans read the poll manager rule book and all of the rules and protocols they put into place. And, I would say my takeaway on that is that you can have all the voting laws and rules in place. However, if one does not investigate all claims of infringement made, the rules are actually meaningless, and we still have an issue of constitutional deficiencies in our voting system, and that's what still stands.
So let me ask you this, Amber. In that election, that's one claim, but the reality is that Professor Halderman, hacked that machine in 5 seconds in the middle of the courtroom. Were there any precinct managers there when he did it? Were there any election officials there when he did that to blame? Do they think in any way that somehow that eliminates what he demonstrated clearly in front of all of the people, including the judge in that courtroom?
No, I think at this point, that's the only argument they have. But there was a bombshell that actually happened. And it was one of the most important things that I've actually heard that needed to be addressed because Voter GA's counsel was finally able to ask a pertinent question. And what had been entered into court record today is that there is a case that sits before the Georgia State's Election Board that is concerning QR code signature mismatch. That means the QR code did not show what the readable text and what the voter wanted. And so because that was entered in the court record, they were also able to enter into the record that when this QR mismatch happened in Tennessee, Tennessee immediately stopped using these BMDs. And that is big because they were able to get that into court record that other places that experienced this QR code mismatch discontinued working with these machines altogether.
There's a great controversy over QR codes. There's a great controversy over tabulators in those machines as well as the ballot marking devices. Now, I'd like to understand something, and I think the audience really needs to know. Why is there such an extraordinary constraint put around what elements of these voting machines can be examined in court to determine whether or not these vulnerabilities rise to the level of a significant, concrete, real, and proximate threat to the integrity of the voting system because of the vulnerabilities of the machine? Why would they only take components?
That's a good question, Lou. And actually, what we found out in court today that was very concerning to me was that the case in Spalding County, where they had issues with their server, and also in Coffee County, where they had issues, it was found out today. The Secretary of State's office never did forensics on either one of those to see if anything had been messed with when their election director, their superintendent, came to them from those counties and said, there's something wrong with my system. And so that was also, you know, very important to find out, is that even when issues were reported with these machines, it seems the Secretary of State's office didn't do a forensic inspection on those very machines that they had to replace.
There's a question hanging over this trial as well. Many questions, but one is why the appellate court did not insist that Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger be in this trial and give under oath his statements about these machines, their vulnerabilities, and what has to be done to make certain that there is an election this year that makes sense. Because to go forward with these machines on its face makes no sense given the vulnerabilities that they have. And so there's that question. And after all, I mean, it's extraordinary where you have a case called Curling versus Raffensperger, and Raffensperger, it's decided by the appellate court, is too high an official to have to respond to a court proceeding in the federal court. It's mind-boggling. Is anybody explaining that?
No, they aren't. In fact, the plaintiff's counsel have mentioned it many times that they would love for the Secretary of State to have been able to come in to testify, but apparently he doesn't have time to. And that brings me to what one of my associates there in LA found out during the Connect case, which is very concerning, and it involves the software and what's going on with our systems. And so the LA court actually sent all the DA's Connect evidence to Malaysia, where Eugene Yu is the CEO, where he relocated. And their attorneys stated that there is 350 terabytes of data that is now back in Malaysia. That's more than the Library of Congress. And that includes data from every election since 2007. And from what my associate Rick Olson is saying, that this directive was given by Hillary Clinton's attorney, Mark Elias, who actually called the LADA to drop the case. And they requested 9 pages to be included in all the evidence that the Connect attorneys want back. So this is insanity playing out that we see all over the place, and not just in Georgia.
Not just in Georgia. And these questions are, at least some questions have been answered right now in that courtroom. We now know that it's a lie to say that those machines cannot be hacked, thanks to the man who did the first study. And I think it's important for everybody listening to us to remember too, Amber, if I may say, that Professor Halderman, who's hacked that machine in 5 or 6 seconds with a Bic pen, he is the man who wrote the definitive evaluation of the machines and their vulnerabilities that was kept under seal by this very judge for 2 years. There is more obfuscation here and more careful constraint that seems to favor one side than I've ever seen in a trial of this sort, which should be about and purely about assuring that the people of Georgia have a free and fair election devoid of manipulation and interference. That I hope is the conclusion here when she does make her judgment, Judge Amy Totenberg. We're going to wrap it up, if we may. What happens next in this case? What happens next week?
So we assumed that we assumed the case would be over this week, but no, they think it may go another week. We'll see. The state's defense are still calling their witnesses. And today they called Blake Evans and Joseph Kirk. He is in charge of the Bartow County elections, and he actually has one of the cleanest elections out of all of the county managers. So it was very nice to hear someone who took all of the steps to cross all the T's and dot all the I's. But I have a feeling that there's not enough training in some of these other counties. So we'll see what other witnesses the state's defense calls next week.
And see what the judge makes of it all, and what Amber Connor makes of it all, as we look forward to your reporting for us here on Lou Dobbs Tonight. Thanks so much, Amber Connor, reporting from Atlanta. And what an extraordinary story this is. And she is doing a wonderful job bringing it to you each evening here. So please join us for that throughout next week. Up next, 5 years ago, more than, 24 heavily armed FBI agents in full SWAT gear, brandishing those fully automatic M4 assault weapons, surrounded Roger Stone's home at 6 in the morning in the dark, banging on his door to arrest him. And he joins us here next to walk us through that day and to remind us of what's at stake in this presidential election 2024. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and I'm here to tell you about my new product from MyPillow, towels that actually work. Watch this absorbency test. Here's another towel that we randomly went out and bought. Here's one of my towels with the nice design. I don't know if you can see this, but you could line a swimming pool with this. I mean, this is crazy. Get rid of it. Towels that actually work. What a concept. I'm interrupting this commercial to let you know you can get our 6-piece My Towels, regular $69.98, now only $29.98. Or you can save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels, made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Also, we have bath sheets, bath towels, washcloths, hand towels, and so much more. And the best part, with your promo code, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all My Towels. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
It was 5 years ago that 29 heavily armed FBI agents in full SWAT gear, full tactical gear, brandishing automatic M4 assault weapons, surrounded Roger Stone's home to take him into custody for the entirely fabricated crime of lying under oath to Congress in his voluntary testimony before the House Intelligence Committee. Remember, voluntary testimony. And who could possibly forget that CNN just happened to coincidentally be with those 29 FBI agents at 6 in the morning, camera crew recording the raid. Outrageous. And Roger, it is great to have you with us, the great Roger Stone, author, podcaster, radio host, and former Trump campaign advisor, and now advisor to President Trump. Roger, welcome. And I've got to begin with how it feels to you to be 5 years distant from that awful morning when the FBI stormed your house.
You know, it's kind of surreal, to be honest with you, Lou. When you look back at it, it's just like one long, extraordinary nightmare. Particularly since at the time I was arrested, I was certain that I had done nothing wrong. There was no Russian collusion to lie about. There was no WikiLeaks collaboration on my part between WikiLeaks and the Trump campaign. And of course, the government never produced any evidence that the Democratic National Committee had been the target of an online hack by Russian intelligence. It's a great narrative. There's just no proof that that actually happened. So I was framed specifically with the purpose of pressuring me to testify falsely against Donald Trump. In other words, once Robert Mueller and his thugs, with their unlimited legal authority, their unlimited budget, their unlimited manpower, couldn't find any Russian collusion, well, then they decided to go out and try to create it, to fabricate it. And they essentially wanted me to testify that the records that they had of some, I think it was 29 phone conversations between myself and candidate Trump in 2016 had been about coordinating with the Russians or WikiLeaks or whatever nonsense they composed. And I, of course, refused. So there was a period in which I was a man staring in the abyss. There were no guarantees as to what Donald Trump would do, contrary to what Hillary Clinton or Jerry Nadler or anybody else would say. But Trump had the strength and the courage to see that I was targeted for political purposes, that I hadn't done anything wrong. And Lou, here's the amazing part. That November of 2020, a year later, a federal judge finally ordered Robert Mueller to disgorge his fully unredacted final report. And even he couldn't sugarcoat the fact that he'd found no evidence of Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or any other crime on my part.
And of course, the Marxist Dems running the Democrat Party and the deep state running the federal government, they didn't recant, and they certainly didn't apologize in any way, but they pressed on. We have never seen a period of political persecution like what we've witnessed over the course of the past, what is now entering its 9th year. And I look at that video of all of those FBI agents. It looks like 24, I don't know how many there were, but to be brought to you for the allegations as if you were some sort of Machine Gun Kelly, it was outrageous. And what a waste of taxpayer money. And there was no accounting, no consequence for this for the FBI and its bloody stormtrooper appearance at your doorstep. It's unimaginable to think that not only happened to you but others as well in the heyday of what was obviously the deep state feeling. They were here to stay, and Donald Trump was going to be gone. Your thought?
Well, you're absolutely right, Lou. First of all, my lawyers were in touch with the special counsel's office the day before. We handed over 30 pages of text messages that proved definitively that I was telling the truth, that my source, that WikiLeaks had information on Hillary Clinton and would release it in October of the election year. First of all, that was not a secret. Assange has said it in numerous interviews, but my source was a radio personality in New York. I turned all those text messages over. At that time, they certainly could have said to my lawyers, by the way, we're going to be charging your client. He should just turn himself in. This is the first time nonviolent crime of lying to Congress under oath, which I even deny that because no misstatement I made in my voluntary testimony to the House Intelligence Committee covered up any underlying crime. There was nothing to lie about, but I had 29 FBI agents in full SWAT gear brandishing fully automatic M4 assault weapons at 6 o'clock in the morning. They arrived in 17 assault vehicles. There was a government helicopter overhead, 2 amphibious units on the canal behind my house. We were later able to figure out this cost the taxpayers $1.1 million. And of course, the real point of this was the CNN camera crew that was set up 25 feet from my front door. They just happened to be there coincidentally, as I'm sure you understand.
Yes, absolutely. And the comments between the anchor at CNN and the field reporter subsequently, the field reporter gleefully reporting that you were there and he seemed to be shocked that you would be there in your sleep wear rather than be absolutely ready to go hand to hand in combat with 29 armed FBI agents in tactical gear. The ignorance of CNN in that moment was just astonishing, breathtaking. You took your breath away. The ignorance of the media in collaboration with the stormtroopers of the FBI. That ignorance is something that none of us will ever forget. I know you won't. But this country is in the grip of a madness, a pathology on the part of the deep state that think they can do this and that it's okay. There will be no consequence. And I would feel better saying that if I had actually seen that there was a consequence, but there wasn't.
Well, in fact, the whole thing makes no sense. In other words, the FBI justified their actions, saying that I had to be taken down this way because I was a flight risk. Yet, after I was booked, I was released without posting any bond, which means I was never a flight risk. I don't own a firearm, even though I do support the Second Amendment, and I can't swim. So if they thought I was going to jump into the canal behind my house and swim away, that was unlikely. And thanks to CNN, I have one of the most recognizable mugs on the planet. So where was I going to go? I mean, they actually brought a battering ram up to the front door of my house, preparing to smash it in if I refused to open the door, which is an absurdity. So, yeah, it was overreach. I guess the purpose of this, other than just to try to humiliate me, which didn't work, was to try to send a signal to others that when you're told to compose testimony, you better cooperate, or this too can happen to you. My wife still jumps when things go bump in the night. I mean, psychologically, you never get over this. And then, of course, the financial toll of struggling to pay for a legal defense. We lost our home. I lost my car. I lost most of my insurance. We lost all of our savings. And, of course, I had no ability to make a living because, like President Trump is now, I was gagged by a federal judge. So I couldn't even defend myself. Now, the whole thing is a nightmare, but it was at a time that Robert Mueller was riding high and neither Republicans nor Democrats would question him. And then I look back at it and I realized that in the prosecutor's sentencing recommendation, they wanted to give me extra time for questioning the legitimacy of the Mueller investigation, which turned out to be a fraud, and for foreign election interference, which I was neither charged with nor convicted of.
The entire thing, there was another audience there, and that, of course, was the White House itself, President Trump, the Congress of the United States, the Senate. Everyone was chilled by what happened to you that morning. And the fact is that those are the lessons that they wanted us to learn. Fortunately, because of the strength of Donald Trump, your personal strength, we have both of you to help this country remember what this election 2024 is all about. If you want to see stormtroopers like that at your door, ladies and gentlemen, you know who to vote for. His name is Joe Biden. And by the way, the FBI hasn't changed its tactics, nor its morals, or its ethics, or its values. We need to change that. And when there is only one man who can do that, his name is Donald J. Trump. Roger Stone, thanks for all that you do, and thank you for joining us here to remind us of what is at stake in this election year. Thanks so much. And a reminder that if you will join us each and every day on our podcast, 7 days a week, that's right. The podcast is The Great America Show. It's on LouDobbs.com, Apple Podcast, iHeart, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. We're waiting to serve you. Please join us on the Great America Show podcast. Well, here we are. Thanks for being with us throughout this week. Join us here Monday, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 Central. The Lindell Report is coming up here next. And Mike, he'll be talking about a great deal more about New Hampshire and New Hampshire possibly getting rid of election machines. You don't want to miss that. And, of course, the latest on the Georgia election machine controversy and now trial. Please join him. He's coming right up. Good night. Have a great weekend. God bless you.
Hello, everybody. I wanted to get right in here and tell you we're going to have a great show tonight. This is the second half of the New Hampshire voting machines to get rid of them and the electronic voting machines. And